at an affordable cost. Round to you, Ray. G3VTD, M1PVC.
Yes, I'm Paul from G3VTD. Yeah, I think Mike's done the right thing actually. The higher voltage working you can get, the better really, but then of course in any situation size becomes an issue, and size is important. And I think the coupling cap between the anode of the PA and the tank circuit needs to be as high voltage working as you possibly get it, because you may be working below its normal working value, but there's some very big transients when you switch from transmit back to receive and vice versa initially. And I had some pulse capacitors in the traps in this antenna. Originally the antenna was just a little bit short for 80 meters, so I put some loading coils in, and then realised that they weren't far off the best position for a 40 meter, 80 meter trap dipole. So I shuffled the position to correspond to a halfway position on 40 meters, and then loaded it to work on 80 meters. Now I can tune these loading coils and make them traps on 7 megs, and they worked out about 20 puff the capacitor. I originally did it with mains cable, and because it was a small value and very high voltage, I just twisted some 2.5 cable together to bring them resonant on about 7 megs, and it worked fine. In fact, one of them still like that, but the reason it's like that is because I put some disc ceramics in at 20 puff, and I think the original ones were 4 kV, and they lasted about 5 minutes. Just shows the sort of voltages that are at the end of the antenna. And I replaced them with some 10 kV ones, and they've been okay since, but one of the coils that failed, I put the twisted wire back on just to make it work temporarily, and that was about 2 years ago. There's a lot of things in this game, you do temporary jobs, and that seem to last for quite long times. I got the aerial together, Paul. Thanks very much once again for all your efforts on that. I've yet to mount it on the car and get it resonant, but structurally I've put it all together with a loading coil inside. I'm just going to fine tune it now back onto 80 meters. I lost it, Mike. It must have disappeared on the M62 somewhere. The bottom of the antenna, instead of being a rigid screw onto the base, was actually a screw onto the base with a normal whip fastener. So I had about an inch of whip between the base and the loading coil, and it stress fractured and must have disappeared into the centre lane of the M62. Not that I drive in the centre lane. The signal's very strong with me, Mike, and the mod's very punchy, but when you put the D104 on, you were very wide, and just the audio output was much greater, so just turn that down and that'll be fine actually. Okay, about the 27 megs, well, I think it's still used quite a lot mobile, but I think the thing that put people off was just the appalling foul language that was used, and they just swear continuously, and I think anybody that's an introduction to radio, you know, like young school lads and whatnot, they used to come and listen to amateur radio and get enthralled by it, but when you sit and listen to the language that goes off down there, I think it's very off-putting for anybody to want to join them, so it's very much a certain type of gentleman that operates on there, I think. Unlike on IC1050, I think it was, that was XCB that you could modify very nicely onto 10 meters FM, and I still got that somewhere. And when the van's open, I used to work all over the place on that with about 5 watts of FM, so that was a cracking little site. You just did a modification to the count IC, and it took it up onto 28 megs. WX is pretty grim this morning. There's a line of it running up, might just be catching stroke, Mike. it's sort of running up from Bristol Channel right up towards North Yorkshire, and dragging rain in with it all the time. So anyway, we're going to make this a final, chaps. I've got to nip into the house. I think they're phrases to see folks, so I'll listen on the laptop, but I'll sign and hopefully catch up with you tomorrow morning. So from me, it's round to Brian again, and I hope you have a pleasant day. G4LJC with the group, G3VTD signing, but listening.
Yeah, okay, Ray, from G4LJC, lovely signal. Going down a bit now, but still a lovely signal. And the very loud German gone, I think, now. And I'm going to sign on this over too, because I want to get my breakfast on the neck quick, and I want to get into town before it gets too busy, and I can find a parking place somewhere near my optician to go and fetch me glasses. My new, well, they're not new frames, they're the same frames that I had before. I've had the same frames for years. Very nice ones, but new lenses in them. And yeah, I built a little, when I converted this ham International multi-mode, I built a little 30 watt PA amp for it, mainly for FM. And it worked on AM. I worked a few Americans on AM on that in those days. The high sunspot cycle, it was very good. And I had, at that time, I had a VK2ABQ, a homemade 10 meter mini beam, if you like, which was very, very good. It had a reasonable front to back gain, but what it did do for me was eliminate all the if I wanted to work into America on a dipole or something omnidirectional, or somewhat omnidirectional, if I put a CQ call out, I'd be hammered with so many Russian stations on 10 meters. It was unbelievable. So the beam allowed me to null them out and work into the States and Canada and things like that without too much bother. But that got destroyed. One blow we had eventually, and then by that time the sunspot cycle gone, so I never bothered putting it back together. So I got a rotary dipole now, which is hand rotated, that one, but that's broken as well now. That got broken in the storm. One of the bamboos failed on it, I just can't get up there to do it at the moment. I'm not sure I'll ever will get up there to do it anymore. I think that mast will have to come down, the boys will have to take it down. Rightio, I'm going to say 7-3, sorry Paul, maybe somebody else will call in now, it's 8 o'clock, the latecomers. But I really want to get cracking and get out of it. I'm not sure if Mike went or not. No, bad news on your valve there, Mike. Oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. Never mind. It's sounding good. Now your second mic was very, very loud. It's very strong audio. The first mic was fine. No problem at all. It sounded wonderful. I didn't have any problem with it at all. So I think on the second mic you need to lower the audio gain slightly. But there we go. G4EJM if you're still there, Mike. G4LJC with the group.
G3XGW, good morning.
Morning, Keith. G3XGW, G4LJC, G3VTD sign, and you're off as well, Brian. M1PVC, Golf 4 Echo Juliet Mike. Okay. Yeah. A good signal now, Brian. Signals come up quite a bit now going, HI. Anyway, all interesting stuff. Yeah, I might try and contact Gary, see if he's got a spare, or one he can spare us for a spare for me, you know. Might be worth a try. Not heard from Gary for a long time. Always was a lovely signal, and he always put a beautiful signal out, Gary did. So, Yeah, I miss Gary, thinking about it. Okay, on the CB in 10 metres, I haven't listened for a long time, you know. I used to have a listen now and then, you know, but you say it was awful, really. But never operated on 10 metres on CB, you know, but came across it quite a bit. The residual carrier port, how I've arranged this, it switches the oscillator, switch HD to the oscillators and the driver and the buffer. Relay switching the HD oscillator and buffer off. And the PA, you can't switch this kind of voltage unless you've got whacking great vacuum relays, and even then I think there's issues. So I was just biasing the valve off. I've got 100 odd volts negative bias onto the grid when it's in standby, and it seems okay at that, you know, so that's a good way of doing it. My little 6146 overbridge transmitter, on the oscillator on that, what I did with that was I put a small relay in near the valve base and switched the buffer in across the coil, so it took the carrier right up into the medium wave, you know, top band you know, took it a good way off. That was a good way of doing that, really. So the oscillator runs all the time and doesn't drift. That's a VFO. This is a crystal oscillator. Now, what else was I going to comment on? The components. Well, I served my time as a radio engineer, Ray, and did I think about 6 years, almost 5-6 years at sort of college. Went to the HNC level. I had a very good tutor, G3 EHM, you know, so as it was an amateur, we got to know a lot of stuff that you probably wouldn't have learned normally, you know. And so I learned all about caps and things, and this was a mica one, ceramic mica cap, you know, and I thought, well, 6 kV, that should be alright, you know. Oh, it was 6 kV or 8 kV. I took it up to show Steve yesterday, G4DVN, I couldn't believe when it went bang. And incidentally, I had another one go as well. I'm using the UM3 mod transformer, and I've got some 2,200 puff caps at, I don't know what the voltage is on now, 3 kV or something like that. Yeah, I've got one here. So like 2 kV. And I've got those across the windings on the UM3 mod transformer. And I was messing about with this thing last night, and I noticed one of them getting hot and a bit of smoke coming off it. Got a little pinhole in it, and it's gone leaky. So that was a bit of bad luck, really. I'm keeping an eye on them now, you know. So it's all settled down in the end. I mean, the reason I can build all this stuff really is because, you know, I've been at it since I was before I left school, a lot before I left school. I've collected all this junk and bits and pieces over all the years, and to build things you need a massive junk box, don't you? You know. And I've been doing all the rallies every year up to this last year or so. And, you know, buying this and buying that, and getting this, getting that, getting the other, getting these caps, getting the other, you know. So you end up with a big junk box, and it means you can build things, you know. And to actually construct something now and have to buy all the bits separately, it'd be horrendous, I should think. And that's why people are not doing it, I guess, you know. So, having all these bits and pieces, you know, is a big help. I've got the time, really. I've got time on my hands, you know, not having a wife now, you know. We got my girlfriend Glenda, you know, and she's here at weekends and a day and night in the week, you know. We go out and that, you know. So other nights I'm kind of on my own, really, you know. So I can spend as much time in the shack as I like, really. Commiserations on the mobile aerial, Ray. That's a big loss because it was beautiful. They sent me the pictures of it and a lovely made thing, you know. Are you going to the auction, by the way, Paul, on Saturday? aren't we? Steve and I are coming down, and John's coming from Conway as well. So, you know, I'm not sure if he's going to call here on the way. We're going to all come down together, or we're going to meet there, or whatever. You know, but they're great social occasions, aren't they? Love it. So if you are, we'll see you there. Back on the original mic, by the way. Yeah, I could hear the gain was too high on the mic, but to start messing about with it at that stage, you know, I could turn it down. I've got loads of mic gain left, so I knew you wanted turning back. When I plugged it in, I could hear the mod transformer shouting away. In fact, you know, I'll just give you a bit more mod on this microphone, then you'll know what it sounds like. There we are. That's a bit louder now, it probably goes a bit on the wide side, but turn it back. I'll tell you what I've done with it, Paul, as well, you'll be interested in this. It's an ECC83 mic amp, and then out of that it goes into an ECC82 phase splitter, and that's the mic gain controls between the mic amp and there, you know, as normal arrangements. Then the output of the phase splitter goes into a push-pull pair of 6BW6s, and I've put pots on the grids there of the 6BW6s, so I can adjust the gain at that point, you know, and so you can sort of turn the mic gain, front-end mic gain up, and turn the output gain down, and I find that way you can make it sound louder by getting the stage gain right, you know. Then the output of those, it goes into a transformer, which is a DD1, a Rodent DD1 driver transformer, then into the pair of 6BW6s, so it's push-pull into push-pull. I haven't put any negative feedback on it, I'm not quite sure how to do it. I have to think about that maybe. And I put a socket on the front of it to take a condenser mic, Paul, you'll be pleased to know. And that's in the thinking about it stages at the moment, you know, just trying to get the PA stable and everything, you know. Really worried me, this TT100 is. It seems alright now, but if it stops oscillating, then the clamper will pull it down a bit, but not that much. Even with 50 volts on the screens, you get loads of plate current, you know. You only need 300 volt on the screens of a TT100, you can put 3 kV or something like that on the anode or something silly, you know, or at least 2. And okay, and yours only having 800 volts on it, Paul. You find marine equipments like that, they always go for overkill. The ocean span transmitter's got 3 807s in parallel to get about 80 watts out of it, 70 watts, something like that. And they do it, I assume they do it because they're constantly varying tuning on the aerial, you know. It must be, and I think they sort of underrun the valves a lot, so that the valves don't go, you know, with the varying aerial conditions. Okay, waffling on here, aren't I? M1 PVC, Golf for Echo, Julie Mike.
Yeah, okay, no worries, Mike. I'll bring in Keith first. G3XGW, M1 PVC.
Yes, M1 PVC, G3HGW, morning both. I think it's just the two of you now, isn't it? Tune. Bit of a dull morning here, overcast, it was 16 degrees though, still pretty mild. Not much in the way of wind, I'm pleased to say. Both very, very good signals. I haven't seen your signal strength on the meter, Paul, but Mike, you were bashing against the end stop, which is must be around about 30/9, I think, on this receiver. So I take it you're on this new big rig with a big valve in it. Although you mentioned it was modulated by a pair of 6BW6s, so I can't quite get my head around that. Perhaps I got that wrong. Anyway, I take it you had a bit of an accident with that one of the big valves. So I didn't get the gist of that. That's a bit of a shame when that happens. Right. Well, I'm in the usual setup: LG300 and 680X and it's well, I haven't been on for a few days. We're still in the throes of sorting out this new bathroom, which is kind of finished now, but it means there's a lot. Now it's our turn to take over and do the decorating, and I want to put some lighting, some nice lighting in it. But I'm a bit wary about LED lighting. Although the two so far have been absolutely clean RF-wise that I've put in. Yeah, I have to take it. I'm not quite sure how to do this. Whether you can take a radio into a DIY shop and ask them to switch a light on and see if it radiates, I don't know, but probably wouldn't really be the thing, would it? Anyway, probably be ordering stuff online, of course. That makes it even more difficult. But they say these certainly seem clean at the moment. These little tiny LED driver packages. They obviously are switching in some way, but they seem to be okay so far. Somebody mentioned Gary. Yes, I haven't heard Gary. Gary doesn't come on these days, I'm afraid, on this. Well, I don't think he comes on at all much, according to Mervyn. Mervyn speaks to him fairly regularly. And he's gone back to his other hobby, really, which is model aircraft. Oh, I guess in the winter that's not going to be taking too much time. Maybe he'll come back when the weather turns bad. But you're quite right, Mike. It was always a lovely signal. It was always lovely to hear Gary. Yeah, somebody mentioned this RT switching. I had to do a lot of fiddling about with this LG300 because it has the same problem of any transmitter that switches the mains to turn it on and off. With decent sized capacitors, things tend to stay on longer than you want them to. And the VFO used to have quite a long tail, which was a real nuisance, especially running the net, for instance, where you've got, a second or two while you're waiting for the VFO to go away, so before you can hear anything. So I don't know how I do in the end. I eventually also ended up switching the 150 volts to the VFO, so it went off immediately, and that solved the problem. Right. I'm not going to hold it too long, chaps. We're planning on a walk this morning, although the weather's not very exciting, but it is dry. So we thought we'd get some exercise and have a bit of a walk. I think my wife's got a few geocaches in mind. We had our trip to Dublin. I think I probably told you about the trip to Dublin, which was nice, and we would have done a little bit of walking there on a place called Bray, which is just south of Dublin. But it was a cliff-top path, and it was the day that the ex-hurricane came through, so we decided that was probably not such a good idea, although it might have been okay, but you just never know, do you, with these things. Right, anyway, I'll listen round, but I might come back quickly for any comments, but it's time to get the breakfast underway, I think. I'm a bit late this morning. M1 PVC, G3XGW.
G3XGW, M1 PVC. Well, you're 15 over. Nice signal, Keith. Good morning to you. And, well, conditions have been pretty good over the last week. Although the band hasn't opened up until, certainly as far as short skip, until about 7:30, but certainly I've been able to work Trevor from about 7:10 without any problem this week, so it's been good conditions, and okay with the weather. Well, weather here is a rerun of what you've got. It's overcast, but it is mild and it's dry, so hope you enjoy your walk. And yes, you did not hear the full valve lineup with Mike's transmitter. The 6 BW6s are push-pull drivers to a pair of TT21s through a UM3 modulation transformer, and Yeah, the capacitor across the windings of the modulation transformer, you're probably quite aware, Mike, that is one of the failings of the DX100. They use a particularly nasty ceramic capacitor, which does give trouble. And they were some of the first things that came out of my DX100s, and some rather nice 4kV rated capacitors, which again are ceramic but large, went in there, and they've caused no problem. And I've also used those as an add-on to decouple the PA modulator stage, which well, it's belt and braces, but works well. And yeah, okay, Keith, yes, I know that you've done that with your LG300. I haven't done it with mine. The residual carrier is there, but it's not too much, and I've learnt to live with it. If stations do call in right on the end of my over, I do miss them, but they get to know that, and they start to leave gaps, which is what I like. I like to leave a 3-second gap when I'm a net controller, if I remember to do so, and I think that's plenty of time for people to call in and announce themselves, and I get by. So I've never bothered, but it is a problem, and all of my transmitters where I've changed the reservoir capacitors, I've gone for larger value electrolytics, so there is more residual in them. But the M54 was exceptionally bad because Dave had gone for choke capacitor filtering on the high tension, so there was a lot of capacitance there, and there was several seconds, because it's not a particularly powerful transmitter at 25 watts, it went for several seconds, so we had to do something with that one, but it's the only one I bothered with. And okay, Mike, on all of your construction activities, well, as I said earlier, in the mid-90s, all of my stuff went up the dump. That I couldn't give away to people that I knew. So since that, I've collected an enormous supply of junk box components, mainly by buying at the end of radio rallies breakdown units, either being given away or virtually being given away for £1 or £2. Stripping them down and keeping the components, and that plus of course new components that one sees at radio rallies at affordable prices. So yes, I've got an enormous selection, and as you quite rightly say, you need one if you're going to keep the costs down, because there are so many different components. I've got 2 great tubs of capacitors. I've got more capacitors than I'd ever able to use, because again, you go to a radio rally, you buy a bag of 100 of the single value capacitors for about 50p or £1, and you know you might use 10 of them, but you're never going to use 100. So we become absolute squirrels, don't we? Anyway, let's keep it going round, and perhaps Keith can get another over in. But good to hear you on this morning, Keith, and understand you're on breakfast duties. Well, I've got both decorator and floor layers coming in today, so I'm going to have a house full of workmen. And the decorator is about 10 minutes away. You can set your clock by him. G4, EJM, M1 PVC.
Yeah, okay, Paul. Looks like a bit of an issue there. I noticed M1 PVC, G3X, GW, G4HM. Very strong signal, by the way, Keith. Sounds lovely, your LG300 does. It's a great rig, aren't they? And just before I go on to that, when I switched on to transmit there, the PA current meter went over to the end stop and came back, you know, so looks like there's a bit of an issue there somewhere. Yeah, I I don't switch the mains transformer in there, like on the DX-100 and LG. The transformer I've got's a big thing, and it does the heaters as well, you know. So you can't switch the mains on that. But as I say, in another transmitter I built, I just put a very small relay in by the VFO, and it put a puffer across the tune circuit, you know, and sent the carrier way off. And that way the oscillator keeps running and doesn't drift. But it's amazing really when you think about it, like the DX-100 and the LG. The VFOs are very stable, aren't they? They switch HG off, you know, they come back on, don't they, on the frequency. Fantastic, really. Clever buggers, weren't they, in those days? And I always put the higher value caps in the smoothing circuits just because they're available, really. And you're right, Paul, you know, buying a bit of junk, like a big old Marconi signal generator that nobody wants anymore, you know, there's everything in there for a transmitter almost, isn't there, you know. That's the way to do it, really, and I guess that's probably what I've done over the years as well. I've just got lots of stuff. I do buy some new caps and some new resistors now and then, although I've got loads, you know, get bags of them at the rallies or whatever, but I get some from China. I had some 0.1 630 volts last year, in this last year, from China, and it was, I think, 50 for about £3 or something like that, and they're great. Little sort of chocolate droppy things, you know. And I've got a whacking great box of 0.015s, which I bought at Rally at Derby about 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, I don't know, a long time ago anyway. And they're those sort of little orange ones, 450 volt or something like that they are. I think I sent you some, Keith, didn't I? So lots of bits and pieces, but you just need lots of bits and pieces. You can't build things by just buying the bits and you know, we're trying to buy stuff on eBay. It's ridiculous, really. eBay, isn't it? Really, you know, components or whatever they say. Well, not a matter of components, but a lot of stuff is silly, isn't it? Really. And I use the UnUn 3-mod transformer because I've got one particularly, and I probably would have used the UnUn 4 if I hadn't got one, Paul, but on your advice, and it seems to be okay. The caps across the windings on the mod transformer, there's a big voltage across those, of course, on speech peaks, you know, so, but I thought 2 kV would be okay across the windings, so I've got 4 of them on the top of the mod tranny across the various windings, you know. It clips the high frequencies as well, you know. Anyway, I'll have to take a picture of it and send it to you, Paul. Everything looks nice and cool at the moment. I'm worried about it because it's working. And the mic amp, the ECC83, because it's got a spare triode there now. Well, I've put a XLR socket on the front to use my condenser mic on it, you know. And I might use the other triode as the input for that. But I'm not quite sure about leaving the socket open the circuit, you know, so when I plug my custom mic in. The normal jack socket, of course, you can put one in that shorts the contacts out, so that's not too bad. So when that's out and you're on the other microphone, that grid will be shorted to deck. But with the XLR socket, there's no method of shorting that to earth, you know. So I'm a bit wondering about that, really. I don't want to start introducing instability or front end taking off or hum or whatever, you know. Although I've put fairly high values of coupling caps in the mod stage to make sure we don't get any 50 cycle hum, you know. If I remember rightly, 2,000 about 2,000 puff or 2,200. I would have used 1,800 puffs if I'd got some, but I couldn't find any suitable ones. So they're fairly sort of low value to clip the low frequencies. Okay. Anyway, you didn't mention it, Paul. I wonder if you are going to the auction on Saturday. Be nice to see you there if you are. Just looking up, we've got a very grey sky here this morning, Keith, if you haven't gone. So not about walking, but probably a good day for you, really, as long as it doesn't rain. Right, back to you, Paul, kids, unless anyone wants to join us. M1 PVC, with a pause. Go for Echo Juliet Mike.
Yeah, I'll just check if Keith is going to take another over. G3XGW M1 PVC? No, Keith did say that he was going for breakfast, but he'd be listening. So 7-3 to Keith. I hope you enjoy your walk. And yeah, sorry, Mike, I didn't answer the auction. Yes, I will be there. Alan is kindly offered to run the net for me because I'm net controller that day, or I was down to be. And everybody that I asked was basically going to the auction, which is not at all surprising. Don't blame them. And of course Alan had his knee op, so I wasn't too well, I was concerned about asking him to do it, but it did come up in another vein, and kindly going to do it, and he feels well enough to do it, so should be a pretty short net, I would have thought. So yes, I will be there with Anne, and look forward to seeing you. Trevor's coming as well, so looks as though we're going to have a good meet-up, and I know Keith is coming, so I could have tried not to buy anything, but we will see. There are some interesting bits there. And if I wanted duplication, there are some very interesting bits there, but I don't think I need another valve tester. I've got one, and I really don't need another 1154, but there are some nice ones by the look of it. But there you go, maybe they look different in the flesh. But yeah, there are a few interesting bits there, and well... yes, I only use that famous internet auction site for buying stuff out of China like you do. I buy new components from there, and I've been very impressed actually with the quality of the stuff that's come back, and the prices paid, and therefore I use them, but I don't usually use others unless I'm desperate for components. I might buy the odd semiconductor from the internet, but I did buy one actually from a Essex valve company for the Marconi Marine. It was an RF driver transistor which was a peculiar number, and I put it in and it lasted about half a second. And I couldn't find any fault with the circuit, so I looked in my junk box and I found an RF power transistor suitable for VHF, and I thought, well, it's not the same configuration, not stud mounted, but who cares, and I put that in, and it's been going with that one ever since, so I've never bothered to put the correct device in it, which, as I say, was gone when I bought the transmitter, and I couldn't find any reason why it was blowing. Everything seemed to be okay, and the new one didn't last either, so there you go. Either there is a fault which that transistor can't handle, or the new component was one of these, which we say, less than perfect capacitors that you get on the market. As you know, there's a lot of counterfeit semiconductors on the market, and there you do have to be aware. or beware. We found that on the Picker-Star project, an awful lot of analog devices, semiconductors were coming out of China as copies, and certainly weren't up to the duty. So there you go. Anyway, I'll make this a final mic, if you don't mind, and get on and deal with my work now. But great to talk to you, and look forward to a chat at the weekend. And that transmitter sounding very good, and yes, all understood with the UM3. Well, I've got a spare UM3 now, which I bought at the Royston auction because it was being auctioned off as a mains transformer. And I picked it up and I looked at it, and it was rather dirty, but I did discern UM3 on it, and I got it for a very cheap rate. Nobody else wanted it, so I was quite pleased with that. So that's, well, it's joined the junk box till I build something with it. So back to you for a final then, Mike, and hope you have a great day there. And keep up the good work. That transmitter sounding very good. I suppose with the XLR circuit or socket, you could always make a shorting plug, which you had plugged in when there was nothing else plugged in there, Mike. Probably not the most elegant solution, but it would work. G4EJM, M1PVC.
Yeah. M1PVC, G4EJM. Okay, Paul. Well, you know, somebody always knows something, don't they? That's a brilliant idea, that is, Paul. I hadn't thought about it. So that's a good way of doing it. I suppose you could do all kinds of different things, you know, to do, putting a relay in or whatever, you know, but that's a good idea. Anyway, looks like I've got a bit of an issue there when I go to transmit. The PA current's going right to the end stop, and then dropping back. So the bias is coming off the valve before the driver's going on it, by the look of it, you know. So that's not a good situation, especially with a TT100. So, oh, very good. You might just comment. I don't. Do you think I've got the mic gain about right now, Paul? I can say I've got plenty of mic gain. I can turn it up a little bit, you know, and that sounds louder there. Don't know whether that sounds a bit better. I'll just leave it there for now, and then you might just tell me. What else? Where else was I? Wrote something down here. Yeah, I get stuff off AliExpress components. You can get all kinds of stuff on there. There's nothing they don't do. AliExpress in China, you know, and you pay with PayPal, so it all works very easily. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks to come. Sometimes it's a few days, you know. But I had some pots. I wanted a 10k pot for biasing or something like that, I can't remember what I wanted him for anyway, you know, and went to AliExpress and got some and I ordered about three of them, several values, you know, and they're beautifully made. It's stuff like that, really. And I'm just looking at some notes here. I put duplicate down for something or other. Oh, duplicate rigs. Yeah, I thought, yeah, as far as the auction's concerned, I look forward to see on the auction, Paul, but there's any point in buying another 1154, is there, Paul? We might as well let someone else have one that hasn't got it, you know. Like I've got one here, and we came across some here with on a silent key sale at the radio club here, and there were several of them, and I'd already got one, you know, so we passed them around, really, you know. Mervyn had one, and I can't remember who had them now. Ken had one or somebody, I can't remember now, but you know, there were several of them, and they went round at a reasonable sort of price, you know, and I hope someone will buy those. There's two of them, I think, in the auction, so I hope someone will get those and get one of them each, and we'll have another couple on the air then, won't we? But I must say, that stuff that's in the auction on the photographs all looks in good condition, doesn't it? It doesn't look like the last one where it was all rusty and been in the shed. Okay. I went up to see Steve yesterday, G4DVN, and we're coming down together. And he was showing me 40 metres was wide open yesterday. There was wall-to-wall stations on 40, so it looks like conditions are getting better now, doesn't it? Okie doke, well, I'll go and get some toast or something and see what the day brings. Thanks, Renata. By the way, these TT100s of mine, but I meant to tell you this earlier, came from Mike, G1 EDP. On condition I didn't sell them, you know. In actual fact, they were in a Raycall transmitter, which there was no chance of getting going because he'd robbed the power supply out of it, and it's one of these funny things full of little black things, not valves in it, you know, and there was no chance of getting it going. So I thought I'll use those TT100s in a linear or something. Then this idea came along, and you said about using the UM3. Would handle the higher power level, you know, and you're right, it seems to do. In fact, actually, I think I've got 2 more UM3s. He's talking about duplicating things, so other people can't have them. I think I've got another 2 of them, which I sort of pick up these things up at rallies for a few quid, don't you? And can't remember whether you've got one or not, you know. You think, oh, I've got one of them when you get back. Anyway, it's all good fun, isn't it? Some threes to anyone who might be listening. G4 Echo, Juliet Mike, off and clear with M1 PVC. Bye.
G4 EJM, M1 PVC, back to the final. Yes, okay, Mike. Well, nothing wrong with that audio level. Leave it there. Sounds perfectly okay. And yes, I've always found the Woden transformers are very conservatively rated, so certainly they'll handle what you're doing. I'm sure a UM3 is quite big enough for that. I use a UM2 on my LG300, and I use a UM1 on the Bendix. In the case of the Bendix, it's modulating a 60-watt carrier. In the case of the LG300, a 100-watt carrier. No problem at all. So there you go. And what else? There was another comment. Totally gone, Mike. So I look forward to seeing you at the auction. Oh yes, I fully agree with you on the getting a duplicate just for the sake of having 2 of something. There's no point in that, as you say. Let somebody else have it. The only point of buying a duplicate is if it's in much better condition than the one you've got, and then of course you move on the one you've got to a new home. I'm guilty of not moving on my spare LG300 or my spare DX100 because I've spent a lot of work, and well, it will be moved on, but at the present moment the time's not right. Anyway, there you go. See you on Saturday if we don't speak before, Mike. M1 PVC, now going QRT.
Here is 95k, go to my logbook. There we go, but once a month or so, you just turn the thing up the extra minute. So through quite nicely, but Ernie, I can hear Ernie, he's talking away.
And I'm like Peter, just an odd word or two, and I can pick up, but apart from that...
Tu es parti dans les... C'est plutôt 58 maintenant, 57, 58, à la limite du bruit. Mais bon, c'est bon, c'était quand même QSA. Voilà, bon, je vous dis à tout à l'heure...
You know, in the transmit stage, that is. But when I pick up the tuning for it on receive...
Which really, it is pointed out that people using computers, I suppose for business purposes and so on, can program them not to do that during their working hours. But a number of people don't understand how that system works. It's a bit opaque, really, as far as the instructions go. But that's not something that really concerns me, although I don't particularly want to be put off normal usage, such as it might be, just because the thing is churning away, updating, and do not switch off your computer. Anyway, we'll see what turns up when it turns up. Otherwise, nothing particular to say, Alan. Nothing on the radio front. Our old blind friend up the road is now in the home over at Halton, just over the hill from here. For how long we don't know. So I know that that's where he is. But so I don't think he's going to get fitted up with radio gear. He may not be fit to use it, even if somebody provided it. But anyway, that's for the future, perhaps not long. Otherwise, not a lot to say. The newspaper was very wet when it arrived this morning. Obviously, it was pouring with rain when the lad came around, and it was left on the windowsill overhanging the radiator when I came upstairs. So I'd managed to fumble through some rather damp pages, just glancing at what there was. Usually have a look at the at the letters page, but particularly these dim mornings, even with the light on in the dining room, I find it a bit difficult reading small print in the paper without my reading glasses, which I don't have at that point. Anyway, I can now see out onto the shore, where it's more or less low tide. So I can see there are patches which must be water and patches which must be sand, but I can't really see very far. So it might be drying up or clearing up or something, improving anyway. Doesn't take much to improve from what we've had. There's a bit more breeze as well. I can see tree branches waving around. And the tree fern in the next garden, I don't know how that feels. Whether it's looking a bit scorched after the winds we had the last couple of weeks, or what, I don't know. But did I say the other day, Margaret had found in a gardening column somewhere or other, I think it's the Garden magazine, how to wrap up your tree fern against frosty conditions. But if it turns mild, you need to unwrap it, because otherwise it will sweat and rot. So I don't think tree ferns are the thing for this part of the world. We don't get frost that much, but the nasty drying winds are something else. Nasty wetting winds at the moment. G3RKQ, G3XLS.
Yes, I'm G3RKQ, yes. Well, we're in a completely different area to yourself from that point of view, Terry. Insofar as this is the mildest part of the country, we very rarely get snow, or very rarely get frost. We do get it occasionally, but very, very, very occasionally. And it is generally milder in this part of the country than at your side, because you get all the weather coming from the Atlantic side, don't you? So, and of course, with it being on near the sea as well, I suppose you're affected by by the salt in the atmosphere, in the air. In fact, you get your windows covered in salt sometimes, don't you? But it seems the rain yesterday precluded Margaret getting into the garden.
Well, I was saying yesterday morning, I bet our respective wives will be in the gardens today. Well, Margaret didn't make it, I'm afraid, but Nins did. She said, I don't really feel like doing this, but it's got to be done. So she pushed off, went out in her gardening trousers, which were, they look like fashion trousers because they got patches on them. Oh, dear. And so she got all these leaves and things out of the way that had piled up all over the place with the wind. So I don't do that sort of thing. I can't kneel down for a start with this blinking knee, so I'll leave Nina to it. Yes, the old Darwin there now in the residential home, is it? Yeah, it sounds as if it might be permanent, Terry, doesn't it? Well, it depends whether it can afford to stay there or not, I suppose. But it's the sort of thing that happens. I mean, he is pretty ancient now. What, he's 96 now, isn't he, Darwin? So he's done pretty well. And it's a pity when these things happen to people that you know. The odds are you'll not hear him on 2 meters again. And as far as hospitals and things like that are concerned, I was supposed to be going on Thursday to the hospital in King's Lynn for a dermatitis interview. I guess I've got all sorts of peculiar things on me. And you remember I had this growth thing on my leg about 2 years ago. It would be now. And it turned out to be a cancerous growth, and they cut the thing out. And since then, I've been going to the dermatitis clinic, is whatever they call it. I think I have to go every 6 months. I think they want me to go to keep an eye on 1 or 2 little spots that have appeared on the old skin there. Well, I was going on Thursday, but I got an apologetic telephone call yesterday, saying that the specialist I was supposed to be seeing, unfortunately, is poorly at home. And we're awfully sorry, but can we postpone your appointment? I said, no, I understand, no problems at all. When do you want me to come? He said, well, we'll give you a shout when we're ready. So that's given me a completely clear week now. In famous last words. So I've got a completely clear week now, which is good, so I can get on with 1 or 2 things that I want to do now. Like reading me books, for instance. And as far as the Windows 10 update is concerned, Terry, well, I think I'll just, you can delay the thing. I've seen how you can do that. I've checked that a lot of you suggested that, and I found that, but I don't think I shall bother. I'll just wait for it to happen, I think, and when it happens, it happens. And if my computer's tied up, get it snarled up with this thing, I can always use my other machines, so no problems there. But the sooner it happens, the better, then we can get on with it. So that's it. Nina's just been in to say there's a wonderful sunrise over the farm and the trees. And so I whizzed out very quickly. This is just before you came on. And I whizzed out quickly and took a photograph of it, but I'm not sure whether it'll have captured the colours properly or not, but we'll have to wait and see. We get a lot of lovely sunrises and sunsets in this part of the world, of course, particularly at this time of year. And I've got my cup of tea now, Terry, and although I was up at a reasonable time this morning, I'm still in dressing gown mode, but I did at least get up at 7:30 this morning instead of my usual 6:30, when I didn't lay in until nearly 8 o'clock like yesterday, so I'm improving. G3RKQ.
Yeah, G3RKQ. With its wonderful sunrise, G3XLS. Well, we don't usually get wonderful sunrises because there's a hill in between us and the east. And so, we know that when the sun is rising, when the sky's clear, but of course we do get wonderful sunsets. Sometimes very pretty, sometimes just pretty. But as it's been recently, we don't get them because of cloud. So we know all about sunrise, sunsets. However, whether we'll get one of those today, I don't know. But yeah, as I said, I look at the update situation for Windows when I've got the computer on. I will be doing a bit later on this morning, and see whether there's any sign of anything happening. but all you can do is click on the thing which says updates and all that, and if it says your equipment is up to date as of some last checked on whenever it was yesterday afternoon it last checked, so there's no point in pursuing things any further. But I find it necessary to look, because unlike you, I don't leave mine sleeping all day. I switch it off when I've done the necessary with it at any particular time. So I don't want to be switching off just when it's in the middle of downloading something, or for that matter doing an update. But anyway, we shall see. Occasionally I find that the internet works a bit slowly. The home screen won't appear as rapidly as I'm used to, and that sort of thing. And that's sometimes an indication that somewhat's up, as you might say. Anyway, we shall see in due course. Otherwise, as I say, it's just a case of up the road for me and down the road for Margaret and David. I think they're taking Monica with them. And so I hope it's not too wet for any of us. But anyway, we shall complete the normal shopping and have the normal sort of Tesco pre-prepared food. At least from the pre-packed point of view, if we want pork chops, then you can get pre-packed 3 up at Tesco, which is what we had last week, in fact. And as far as the casserole, the beef casserole we had on Sunday, you can get quite satisfactory packs of root veg. A small swede, a parsnip, some carrot and an onion, which are just about right for us. You have to buy yourself a leek or two to go with them, but that completes what goes in our sort of casserole, so that's all right. I tend to forget to do it now. It's because of sort of distance within the supermarket, but sometimes to go with lunch by way of veg, I get mushroom stir fry pre-packed, and that's just right for the 3 of us. I might do that today, depending on what I choose to get for lunch. So we don't do too badly for that. The joint we finished yesterday to the last scrap was just the right size for us. But then I'm talking about catering for 3 and not 2. Often catering for 3 is difficult as well. So anyway, that's the way we suffer. But pre-packed life is the way of it, isn't it, these days? Right. Yes, I think Darwin is probably where he is permanently, whatever permanent might mean now. He was talking about them wanting to get him into a home a month or 2 ago, because things were getting a bit difficult, a bit more difficult than usual. But of course nothing particular came out of it until he was ill and came home and had a fall and went back, and that rather precipitated things. So anyway, he's over there in a home, and whether somebody will find out further about him or what, I don't know. It's not really my direct concern, although I just, because I've talked to him a couple of times a week for quite a long time now, it's something that's in the corner of my mind. Anyway, it's 8:55. Won't be too long before we go out. The paper might have dried off a bit by the time I go downstairs, and may have a look at that. I'm getting into the, did I say I've been finished the defence history book, if you like. I had a go at another one. What was that? It was about armoured warfare, and that didn't really gel with me. So after the first chapter or so, I gave up on that, and I've fished out a book called Battle of Wits, which is a history of codes and that sort of thing, worldwide, if you like, although it's an American book, and thereby starts in America with their puny efforts before the war, and the usual arguments between the army and the navy and the government about who should do what and whether they did it at all. And but then we've gone on to Room 40 at the Admiralty and that sort of thing on this side of the Atlantic. And so we're into the theory of codes and such like, which with a little concentration I can follow. It isn't comprehensive from that point of view, but it's quite interesting. So it's American English, and it uses sort of fit instead of for the past tense of fit. It says fit rather than fitted, and that sort of thing. You've got to get used to O sounds without the U in them, and I'm afraid that's the American language, isn't it? However, that apart, it's very interesting. It's a long time since I've read it, so it sort of repays rereading it. With which I'll see what else you might have, Alan, and then I think the other two will be off on their way imminently, and we'll see what David comes back with from W.H. Smith. I won't be. The only odd magazine which I occasionally get at Tesco is What Hi-Fi, and when I've got it, I think, why did I buy this? Because it's full of streaming rock and such like advice and equipment which will do the same. Very difficult to see anything that's of interest really about sort of classical hi-fi, if you like. And when they do come up with that, you get hugely expensive pieces of equipment reviewed, which again are not quite my line of country. They wouldn't be the bank line of country either. So, see what else you have, Alan. G3RKQ, G3XLS.
Yes, from G3RKQ, yes. Well, modern loudspeakers, of course, seem to be geared to bassy pop noise, don't they? So it's very difficult finding something that's suitable for people who appreciate good music. But you can if you look hard and if you look hard enough. I think the loudspeakers I got, which I've had for some considerable time, the tower ones, and one of the loudspeakers sometime, I think I told you about this a few years ago now, one of the loudspeakers, the comb became detached, and so I telephoned them and said, can you do something about this? And they said, well, are you able to take the loudspeakers out of the enclosures? I said, well, yes, of course, no problems. They said, well, if you take the loudspeakers out, send them to us, we'll mend them and send the beggars back. So they did that. I think it cost me about £40 altogether, and instead of buying 2 new speaker units altogether. So and they've been very good ever since. So that's what I'm using in the lounge. I've got a pair of what have I got up here in the lounge? I've got some what they call the damn thing is I forgot what they call the blooming thing is now. I'm going daft. What they call the things? Oh yes, Wharfdales. My brain's going, Terry. I've got a couple of Wharfdales in here. They're quite big actually, but the bookshelf speakers, and they're very good indeed. And I've got some TIAC gear in here, of course, so that's a good sound. Yes, your book on armoured warfare there, yes, not very interesting, so shelved it, yes, well, they're not always good to read, are they, these things? It all depends how they're being written, of course. I'm finding my books, the history books you suggested, very absorbing indeed. It's well written,
and it's interesting the way that it's written, and I'm really into it now. It's really very absorbing, that's the word. And your Battle of Wits, you mentioned you got your Battle of Wits, the code words and things word-wide. Of course, American books have got these queer ways of spelling things, haven't they? But nevertheless, I'm sure that'll be interesting too. Yes, poor old Darwin. I think if one finds difficulty in coping alone, which indeed he was, particularly when he'd had his fall, a home is possibly the best thing. I'm sure most of us wouldn't want to go to live in a home if we had the opportunity, but if you can't cope on your own, well, that's probably the best thing to do. My father was the same. He went into a residential home, and he was there for the last couple of years of his life. And he finished up in a nursing home because he wasn't so good, and that's where he died. But he was up in Thirsk, you see, so we had to keep whizzing up there every 5 minutes. So that's how things go. He's been gone a long time now. What would he be? Well, he was born in 1907, so he died in 1998 then. So he's been gone, and time flies. Yes, well, with a clear week, which I'm hoping I might get, I might even finish my wind vane this week, Terry, you never know. And if the weather's reasonable, I might even get the thing erected and working. I've got some beef out of some stewing steak out of the freezer this morning, and that's going to freeze. What do I call it? Melt off. Ready for tonight. I'm going to do some beef stew and dumplings tonight, Terry. So that's tonight's thing. And yes, I use quite a lot of mushrooms in my cooking. Actually, I like it just has a little bit of extra taste there. So, but I don't think I'll be putting any in my beef stew tonight, though. It wouldn't quite feel right.